My name is Giuliana Mani, and I'm a collaborator of Francesca Torzo. And I will present you today Z33, that is both a renovation and an extension art museum in Belgium, Hasselt. And I would like to start by questioning what is an interior, because Z33 has indeed been nominated in the Best Interior category, and yet this building proposes a deliberate ambiguity, equivocal perception of an interior that is here asserted as a self-evident fact. This building challenges in silence with understated refinement this distinction. Here, interior bears the multitude and generosity of exterior spaces. Meanwhile, exterior provide the enclosure and the gentleness of an interior. Through this double ambivalence, let us reverse the conventional sequence of presentation that zoom in from the level of the context to that of the interiors. Let us zoom out here and choose reading from the small to the large. And I would first like to just start with the quote of Samuel Beckett. That is what I feel, an outside and an inside, and me in the middle. Perhaps that is what I am, the thing that divides the world into two. On the one side, the outside, on the other, the inside, that can be as thin as a foil. I'm neither one side nor the other. I am in the middle. I am the partition. I have two surfaces and no thickness. So let's start inside. And the inside could be defined as the space that extends within limits. But when those very limits conceal their thickness and are reduced to a mere line, they become abstract. At the threshold between a room and the next, between a room and a patio, or between two windows, the solid three-dimensional wall narrows down to a two-dimensional figure, and the continuous floor unveils its single joint, and partition blend into a thin shadow, achieving a minimal degree of reality. As a result, space live and breathe closer with each other. And in this proximity, the ceiling underlines this continuum. The trapezoidal cassettes captures light and shadow in their soulful undulating overhead, and seems like the ripple of a liquid that is pouring out organically until it meets an impeding wall. However, this continuity of the movement does not advocate for a continuity of space, rather the opposite. This effortless wandering of the body sustains a variety of rooms, each one with its own character, its distinctive light and shadow, and its defining proportions. One can meander from room to patio, from garden to hallway, just like the flaneur would do in the city, from street to square, from alley to passage. And those enfilades reminds us very much of the medieval city of Hasselt, and more in particular the direct context of the Begijnhof, where those passages and enfilades are. And still, those enfilades are not only those streamed alignments of the plan, but rather broken line, slight bendings, diagonal and fragmented views. And to that extent, the spaces contained within a cluster of rooms, namely the garden and the patio, are treated like interior and extend the spaces of rooms around and also reflect them. And finally, some openings like we see here between one room and the other are not meant to be only functional doorways, but rather treated like a window that would overlook an outside that is in fact an inside. Meanwhile, actual windows like this one always provide introverted view to the courtyard context. And before entering this sequence of room, the transition between the outside street and the exhibition space ensure a careful gradient of privacy. First, one enters this long facade through a single narrow and high slit, as if a curtain would gently be held to let someone pass it. This doorway opens to a patio, small but high, with large window, through which one can already glimpse at the reception, the mezzanine above, and the Begijnhof courtyard beyond. Following is a lengthy hallway with a gently, in the middle, with a gently sloped floor and widening walls, at the end of which there is a high up one of those interior windows reminiscent of a street alley. And finally, last note of this crescendo is this, the ceiling height is condensed one last time as one enters towards the backside of a triple flight staircase and rise under a bright skylight. Outside. The corollary of the initial definition of an interior, namely the space that extends within limits, sets the exterior as the space beyond those limits. Then the facade is the limit. The museum is part of a distinctive context. Here we see it is this triangle and in the medieval center of Hasselt. And it's called the Begijnhof. It's a former semi-monastic community housing group around a central garden. And it has an introverted setting in which streets are almost completely lined with closed walls. And the new facade is no exception to the rule. It's a continuous and silent wall of 60 meters long and 12 meters high, and is only interrupted by 3 openings without glass. In spite of its size and opacity, its appearance is still vibrant as the unevenness of the handmade brick is fracturing the light into fine particles of shadow, thus tuning the scale of the city with that of the human. Once again, this facade fosters this ambiguity. On one hand, this is a solid wall. The brick size relates to its context. It is 3 layers of brick and 4 layers of joined high. The brick weight is approximately 700 grams. It is not only a cladding, so that if a kid throws a ball, the wall doesn't sound hollow. And on the other hand, this facade possesses the quality of ornament. The rhomboidal shape is ambivalent and stems from a long tradition of architecture history. This is a photo of Francesca from Ercolano, and this opus reticulatum from the Roman times. And she describes it beautifully, saying that it looks like there is a wind blowing and the wall becomes like a veil. And the mortar joint is still strong, but the tufa stone has been weathered out by time. Or maybe more closely here at Cadoro, another one of those ornamental shapes. So, alike with the textile, it seems that the load-bearing direction is reversed, from top to bottom hanging rather than from bottom to top standing. And under the low sun, the imposing brick facade seems to flicker softly, like a piece of hand-woven fabric with its own ton-sur-ton painted join. Here are other details, folds, joined, coming together, turning, ending, opening. And in that context, the street, the ground of itself, becomes also part of the project as a scenography. This was early during the competition phase, 2011, when there was a survey of each stone of the floor of the surroundings. And those fragments of ground becomes also interior. Here we see those fragments of ground as streets, patio, courtyards, openings, and passage that echoes indefinitely. They become outdoor rooms. And here are also photos of early models from the competition phase where it is not clear the distinction between an inside and the outside. And to conclude, in this blurring definition of what is an inside, what is an exterior, and what is an interior, I would like to quote Aldo Rossi saying, "The emerging of relation among things more than things themselves always poses new meanings." Thank you.